You arrive in the outer dark, where sunlight feels like a rumor. The stars are indifferent, and ahead of you hangs a pale jewel, a blue-green crown in the void. It looks serene, almost gentle, like a planet that forgot how to rage. But the calm is a lie, the kind of beauty that hides a wound under perfect skin. Because this world is not standing upright like the others. It is toppled, pinned, and forced to roll through space like a body that never recovered from the blow. This is Uranus, the broken planet lying on its side. To the casual observer on Earth, Uranus is a distant dot beyond Saturn, faint enough to be ignored. From here, it seems like a smooth, cyan face with little drama, no obvious scars, no roaring stripes. But come closer and you feel the wrongness. Its axis is tilted about 98 degrees, as if something grabbed the planet and slammed it down. Seasons here are not a gentle cycle, they are a punishment that lasts decades, with each pole locked into sunlight or darkness for about 42 years at a time. A planet should not live like this, yet Uranus does. Imagine you drop beneath that peaceful color and let the atmosphere swallow you. You would fall through hydrogen and helium laced with methane, the chemical that stains this world blue like bruising under ice. Near the cloud tops, the temperature sits around 49 Kelvin, about minus 224 degrees Celsius, cold enough to make familiar matter feel brittle. But the cold does not mean stillness. Winds can scream at roughly 900 kilometers per hour, tearing cloud layers sideways because up and side have been confused by a planet that won't stand straight. You would freeze, then vanish into gas. Uranus would not notice. We think a giant planet should glow from leftover birth heat, leaking warmth the way a living thing leaks breath. But Uranus is famous for its absence of fire. It radiates only a little more energy than it receives from the sun, as if its internal furnace was smothered long ago. Physics demands more heat from a world this massive, but here the warmth is muted, missing. Was it stolen, trapped, or sealed behind layers that refuse to mix? We were wrong to assume every giant is still burning inside. Somewhere in the early solar system, the violence happened. One leading idea is a titanic impact, a collision with a protoplanet big enough to knock Uranus sideways and leave it spinning like a fallen crown. Another idea is a slower beating, a series of blows that toppled it over. Either way, the aftermath is written into its posture. Uranus rotates on its side once every 17 hours and 14 minutes, rolling through space as it orbits the sun. What you are seeing is not a quirky tilt. It is the frozen pose of trauma. Then there is the magnetic field, the thing that should protect a planet like an invisible shield. Uranus refuses to keep its magnetism in the right place. Its magnetic axis is tilted about 59 degrees from its rotation axis, and the field is offset from the planet's center by thousands of kilometers. Physics demands symmetry, but here the magnetosphere is a twisted cage being dragged sideways through the solar wind. As Uranus spins, that cage whips and contorts, sweeping charged particles into strange arcs and throwing auroras where you wouldn't expect. A shield that cannot stay aligned becomes a weapon that swings unpredictably. Around the planet, thin rings circle like restraints. dark bands that feel less like jewelry and more like evidence. Uranus has 13 known rings, narrow and sharp-edged, made of debris darker than coal. Beyond them drift 27 known moons, each one a fragment of the system's damage. And one of them looks like a nightmare assembled from scraps. Miranda is only about 470 kilometers wide, yet its surface is a patchwork of shattered terrain. Cliffs rising up to roughly 20 kilometers, canyons and ridges stitched together like a corpse repaired with the wrong parts. It looks as if it was torn apart and reassembled carelessly, gravity doing the best it could with rubble. Other moons carry their own scars and darkness, but Miranda feels personal, like the system is showing you what the impact did when it had smaller bodies to break. Humanity has barely touched this place, and that ignorance is part of the terror. Only one visitor has ever crossed Uranus up close, Voyager 2, which flew past on January 24, 1986. It came in silence, a small machine with a fragile radio voice, and it left with a few hours of stolen data. It measured the tilted magnetic field, confirmed the rings, and photographed moons that looked like wreckage. Then it fled into deeper black, because there was no time to stay. One flyby, one glance. Uranus still refuses to be simple. Storms appear and vanish, dark spots blooming like infections and then fading, as if the planet will not keep a stable face. Its seasons are so extreme that sunlight can strike the poles directly, while the equator sits in a strange, prolonged twilight. The atmosphere must respond on timescales that mock human lives, adjusting slowly to a world whose orientation is wrong. Physics demands predictable circulation, but here the rules feel bent, delayed, and reluctant. Now go deeper, where the blue light dies and pressure becomes a crushing language. Uranus is not a solid world you can land on. Beneath the upper clouds, pressure climbs through tens of bars, then hundreds, then thousands, until atmosphere becomes a word without meaning. You would be squeezed past the point of pain into quiet obliteration. Far below, models suggest a mantle of hot, dense fluid made of water, ammonia, and methane. Not as liquids you recognize, but as an exotic, conductive ocean under monstrous pressure. Some researchers predict super-ionic water, where oxygen forms a lattice and hydrogen ions flow through it like ghosts. Frozen outside, burning inside. In those depths, carbon may break apart and fall as diamond rain, crystals forming under. Millions of atmospheres, and sinking like glittering bullets into darkness. Imagine standing in a storm where the raindrops are gemstones and the air itself is lethal. Imagine an ocean that conducts electricity, feeding a magnetic field that refuses to sit straight. Imagine heat trapped below, unable to rise, while the cloud tops remain among the coldest places in the solar system. Contradiction after contradiction, stacked like bodies. Uranus is built from impossibilities, and it wears them like armor. Even time is hostile here. A Uranian year lasts about 84 Earth years, and at roughly 19.2 astronomical units from the Sun, the planet circles 2.9 billion kilometers from the warmth that made Earth alive. Daylight is weak, diluted, and yet it still drives chemistry in the upper atmosphere, changing hazes and clouds over slow decades. The planet rotates quickly, but its seasons crawl. If you waited for a full cycle, you would grow old watching light crawl from pole to pole. And Uranus would not hurry for you. We tell ourselves Uranus is just another cold giant in a lineup of planets. But that is the deception. This is not a calm sphere. It is a toppled survivor, carrying the posture of an ancient assault and refusing to explain what happened. We still do not know exactly what knocked it sideways, why its internal heat is so muted, or how its off-center magnetic heart truly works. The questions hang there like frost in the dark, preserved, waiting. So you pull back, away from the pale crown and its rings, and you feel the scale swallow you again. Uranus rolls on, sideways, through cosmic time, dragging its twisted magnetosphere and its scarred moons through a silence that does not care. Long after our names are dust, its poles will still trade decades of light for decades of night. The broken planet will keep turning, not upright, not healed, just enduring. And somewhere in that calm, the wound is still open.